I'm Robert Asensio. Next to me is my co-host, Raul Correa. So you ever wonder what it is like to be a police officer? What it's like to be, lead police officers in Miami-Dade County? What it would be like to police your own community? Well, especially during this COVID pandemic. So without further ado, I want to turn it over to my partner, Raul Correa, who will introduce our new co-host and we'll talk about Miami's Cop Talk.
Thank you, Robert. And this is our launch of the Miami Cop Talk show. So hopefully it's going to be a great success. And to try to make it a great success, we have a special guest. I mean, you can't get any better than this guy here. Major from Miami Beach Police, but most importantly, he's the president of the Miami-Dade County Association of Chiefs of Police. A good friend of mine, an amazing individual, and hopefully he's going to kick us off with some good information. And we hope to have a regular segment on our show dedicated to Dade Chiefs. When David's time is up as president, and then we have the chief of South Miami, Renee Landa, coming on board. So we got some good things in store for Miami Cop Talk, and hopefully we'll have a good show today, and we'll kick off with more of Robert.
So let's talk about a couple points. I kind of went off script here for a second, but bear with me here, Raul. So a couple of facts about Miami-Dade County, right? So Miami-Dade County is the 7th largest metropolitan county in the United States. That's incredible. 7th largest metropolitan county in the United States. We have a population of just over 2.7 million residents in Miami-Dade County. It is definitely a destination point for many tourists, as we know, businesses, financial capital for the region of the Americas. We have about 180 languages spoken in Miami-Dade County. Prior to COVID, roughly 60% of the population in Miami-Dade County was 1 or 2 paychecks away from economic disaster. We can't imagine what that is now during COVID. We know that the workforce has traditionally been underemployed, underpaid, and now there's a portion of Miami-Dade County that is unemployed. Why am I pointing out these facts? Because that leads to a lot of the issues that our police officer and our president of our Dade Chiefs, as representing the police officers in Miami-Dade County, there is no shortage of controversy. Raul, before we go to the chief, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you decided to co-host this show, Miami's Cop Talk, and what it's about and what we intend to do with this show.
Well, I will say that I know, Robert, you've been on the air for a while. You're a former Florida State rep, and you gave me a call after an interview that we had a week or so ago, and you sparked my interest, talking about local law enforcement, being a voice for local law enforcement. Cops are very hesitant into speaking up. They hate the media. They're scared of the media. But the fact of the matter is the media is our friend, and we need to leverage that amazing opportunity that we have in the media to be able to share stories, good, bad, and indifferent. But we need to communicate. In Spanish, we're saying, hablando la gente se entiende.
Definitivamente.
So we need to talk a little bit more. And I think it was an honor for you to ask me to co-host with you. And I first thought it was, the fact that we've known each other for 30 years and you had a secret romance for me. But I know that's not the case, because I know your wife. I know your wife.
That's for another show.
So the fact of the matter is we work good together. We've known each other for 30 years, and I think that this will be a good opportunity to give a voice to local law enforcement.
Absolutely. So the main focus of the show is to personalize police officers, build community relations, improve the perception of what police officers are. So without further ado, what do you say? Without further ado, why don't we bring on the president of the Dade Chiefs, Major David?
He's got a tough last name.
Can you pronounce his last name? I apologize.
I call him David, and I can see him. He's putting on his makeup, and there we go. Now we're ready for David. There he is.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you for being on.
That's the quote of 2020. Am I muted?
No, no, we can hear you fine. We can hear you fine.
Now that we're all Zooming and all kinds of different virtual platforms, we've all had to get used to that mute button and not leaving it on. That's also very important.
David, listen, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. Where'd you get that spectacular last name? If you can
Well,
pronounce
first of all,
it
if
for
you can pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly. Tell us.
So I'll pronounce
How'd you make it to Miami Beach?
you all. Yeah, so my name's David DeLaEspriella. It's a very common name in South America. My family's from Colombia, South America, but I was kind of listening into you guys before the show started. I grew up in the Republic of Hialeah, so the gentleman that was talking about that Hialeah shirt, I'd love to get
Grant Miller.
double XL, please. Grew up in Hialeah my entire life and joined the Miami Beach Police Department way back in 1996. So this past month, I turned 25 here in the department. And Robert, I want to thank you because you referred to me as chief a couple of times. So I appreciate the promotion. Don't let my wife hear you because if she does, she'll quit her job immediately. That's what she said she would do if I become chief ever. She's going to quit her.
I consider you a chief right now. You're the major in Miami Beach, but you are a chief, head of the Miami-Dade Chiefs. That's a big role.
So I joined the Miami-Dade County Association of Chiefs of Police when I became a captain back in 2011. Became involved a few years later with different committees, and then finally made the decision to run for the elected office of the association. The way we do it in our association is you just run for treasurer, and that starts your ascension. So you get elected treasurer, and then each year you move up. You go from treasurer to secretary, secretary to vice president, and then vice president to president. We serve 1 year term. So my presidency goes from May to May. So I'm coming up on the end of my presidency in a couple of months. And just very interesting for me, the very first day of my presidency was the Saturday of one of the first protests that we had in Coral Gables. There was a very famous photo of all the state chiefs that were at this protest in Coral Gables. We agreed to meet with the protesters. They were a group of students from the University of Miami, and there was a viral photo that went worldwide where we were on one knee praying with Dr. Richardson from Miami-Dade County, who was leading us, and that photo went across the world because I ended up having to do many interviews with Mexico and a couple of other Latin American countries throughout about that photo and about that event. That was my very first day as president of Dade Chiefs. Talk about jumping right into the fire in terms of.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You did well.
It's been a very hectic year for me as president, but it's been a complete honor to really be representing the 36 agencies throughout Miami-Dade County and all of the chiefs and all the command staff members that are part of our organization. So it's been thrilling, and I'm glad that I got a chance to do it. Unfortunately, it's been virtual the entire year. When I first started, back, one of the things that I really enjoyed, and this was back when when you were still with school board, we used to have a monthly dinner.
Yeah.
Where we would honor an officer of the month. Every month we honor a police officer for some kind of heroic act, and that really was one of the main reasons that kind of motivated me to become and to try to become treasurer, was because of this. This association that really dedicates a lot of its energies and efforts to, not only making sure that we are collaborating amongst ourselves as agencies to provide the public safety that we need to provide, but that we take time every month at a dinner special across the county to honor a police officer that has been nominated and selected as representation, really, because I know phenomenal police work happens every day in this county. Right. We are by far, I think, one of the most, one of the best areas for policing in the country. I believe that wholeheartedly, and so those officers of the month, they just represent the thousands and thousands and thousands of good things that happen every day here in Dade County. So I'm really grateful to be on your show. I wish you guys the best of success, and hopefully we'll be able to maybe have a segment where we can come on each month and tell you who that officer of the month is, because that way we can demonstrate to the public, all the good work that gets done on a daily basis out there.
Raul, if you don't mind, I want to bring something up. Major David, Chief, who knows? Maybe you'll be the next chief in one of the agencies in the county. But But you know, police officers, it's got to be a real hard time to be a police officer today in modern society. I know that you mentioned something about your first day was the day that all the chiefs. I thought that was such an impactful statement that you guys made by, you know, meeting with the community, you know, showing passion that often is not even featured, right, or highlighted. And but talk to us about how it's been managing the chiefs of police association during this difficult time where there's a lot of scrutiny, a lot of negative towards the police, and keeping it positive for the community. How has that? Can you explain a little bit of the challenges that you've encountered during this time?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, you know, when we look back, obviously what started that, you know, was the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis, and I think that was one of the first times that I you know, you can look across all spectrums and look at the incident, and I think everyone immediately said, okay, that was wrong. That there wasn't this, you know, where sometimes you have a perception issue and you have to defend the officer because it was perceived wrong. No, we all kind of came together and said, okay, that was wrong. So now the across the country, the protests started and the calls for reform started. And I think for me, what this entire year has really been a lot about has revolved around that idea of reform. And you know, as president, one of the first things I did was I created a committee. You know, we have many committees for Dade chiefs, where different chiefs of police volunteer to deal with the different types of business that we have. And one of the things I did was I created a committee on accountability and reform, so we can look at things here locally at the county level, so that we can work with some of these groups that are coming forward and saying, hey, this is the kind of reforms we're looking for. And in this particular case, the students from Coral Gables, which, you know, they put together an entire presentation. We agreed to meet with them afterwards via Zoom, which we did. And they presented us with a list of, you know, they called them demands. They were things they'd like to see reformed in policing. Now, they were looking at this from a much bigger picture, not really understanding and knowing what we do here in Dade County. And I think when we all looked at those requests that they made, I would say almost everything on that list, and it was based on a campaign that was nationwide called The 8 Can't Wait. And all of that, I think for the most part, 99% of what was on there, at least here in South Florida, we already did. When you're talking about de-escalation training, we already do. We've been doing de-escalation training for years. When you're talking about crisis intervention training, I took one of the first crisis intervention training classes under Judge Leisman's program 20 years ago.
Hopsy, right?
Correct.
With Hopsy, yeah, exactly. I think I was in our first class with Hopsy. And so a lot of those things, the chokehold, we haven't taught chokehold in forever. We bar the chokehold except for deadly force situations. Shooting at vehicles, we don't shoot at vehicles except under very small certain circumstances. So all of the things that they were asking of us, we turned around and we said, look, we do all these, but even though we do all these, where else can we improve? And I think that's a big one of the biggest things that we did this year is really look internally. Where can we improve? As part of this year-long reform effort, I was asked to sit on the Florida Police Chiefs. I'm a member of the Florida Police Chiefs Association. I serve on their awards committee, but since my role as president of Dade Chiefs, they asked me to sit on a subcommittee that they created on accountability and societal change. That has been ongoing. They've put out already a piece on use of force recommendations. We're working now on the community side, because there's two sides of this coin, and this is one of the points I made on that committee. There's things that the police can always continue to do to improve, but there's also things the community need to do to improve. You know, I'm a huge believer in Sir Robert Peel, you know, who's known as the founder of modern policing back in 1829. And so there's one principle that I always say: the public are the police, and the police are the public. We just get paid to do that, which is the responsibility of every member of society. So with that mindset, when we have people that know who shot whomever and don't come forward, that's a responsibility that they have. If we can't get that kind of help from the public, then it makes our job easy, and it's a detriment to society in general. This has been a long year of of really just kind of work on those things. I know that our state attorney, Catherine Fernandez Rondo, put together a piece of legislation that she's trying to get pushed through Tallahassee. We took a look at that at our level, at the Dade Chiefs level, and as it is currently written, we support it. A lot of it has to do with training for to implement statewide, and again, a lot of it is things that we've been doing here for many years. And so I think that when you're talking about progressive law enforcement in the sense of being way ahead, we're there, and I'm very proud of that piece for us down here in South Florida.
David, you're a married man, as you said when you alluded a little while ago, and I'm a married man. There's got to be communication, and you heard in every marriage there's got to be communication. You heard me say earlier in Spanish, hablando la gente se entienden. What do you think we could do in law enforcement to better communicate with the community? You guys have a great PIO on the beach, and Neto Rodriguez, who does a great job. But sometimes I know from being a former PIO, there are things that you want to say but you can't. There are investigations you don't want to jeopardize, but we tend to have that apprehension to communicate with the public, and sometimes the lack of information creates a greater distrust in law enforcement. What could we do better? What could Dade Chiefs do better to maybe bridge that gap, other than coming on Miami Cop Talk?
Right. So I tell you, couple of thoughts on that. Number one, it's very difficult for me at home because my wife works for the media, so that's a very thin line that I have to tread.
Correct.
So I know my wife from your time as PIO. But yeah, that I think that although PIOs and every agency should have its robust PIO section that is incorporating those relationships with the media along with social media presence and those kind of things that you have to do. But when it comes to the community, I think a lot of it has to be a little bit more grassroots. For our city here, we created way back in, I want to say 2000. I was our city's first neighborhood resource officer. And my role was to be that connection and that liaison between the police department and the community. And so I had the North District of Miami Beach, and I was responsible for getting to know all the presidents of homeowners associations, going to all those business community meetings, all the homeowners association meetings, and being that problem solver for them, because every neighborhood has its own set of problems that they feel are important to them. What North Beach thinks is important may be different than what South Beach thinks is important. So having a much more robust grassroots type community policing program, I think, is essential. And then from the Dade Chiefs perspective, we have to continue to support the agencies in those communications. And one of the things that I did, I'm sure you all know her, Dr. Shirley Planton, who's the executive director of the Community Relations Board. Correct. I met her for the first time at that Coral Gables protest. And I asked her, I said, does Dade Chiefs have a seat at your table? And she said, well, different chiefs come to the meetings from time to time. I said, no. Does Dade Chiefs have a seat at your table? And she said, no, I don't think you do. So I asked, and she said, absolutely. You now have a seat at the table of the Community Relations Board. And in my role in having been assigned to the Florida Police Chiefs Association, I was asked as part of that process to bring a community member with me so that this was a partnership of law enforcement and community. And that's the person that I brought. I asked her if she would participate, and she accepted. And so she's been part of that process at the state level as well. And I think that's how Miami-Dade, that's how Dade Chiefs will continue this relationship, because at times, from investigations, there are things we can't say right away. There is body cam that we can't release right away. And I think part of to make that less impactful, you have to be able to explain the why we can't release it right away, and have those community members on board understanding the why, who can then transmit that out to the much broader community and allow people to understand that it's not that we're hiding stuff, it's just investigations sometimes prohibit us from releasing certain information at certain times. But Florida is a very open public record state. When that investigation's over, it's all going to be out there. So it's not, we can't hide it ultimately.
So can I ask you a question? Because for those people that have watched this and will ask, you mentioned we have 36 police agencies in Miami-Dade County, not including the federal and state agencies. Am I correct? Law enforcement, that is.
Right. So I'm including corrections in there. And there's one other. I think it's 34 actual police departments, and then the two. I think it might be the state attorney's office and corrections, or corrections. I might be missing one.
Okay.
Well, David, let me ask you. Now that you said that, I mean, just from a numbers perspective, ballpark. We're not going to hold you to it. How many uniformed police officers are on the road in Miami-Dade County at any given day?
Ooh, that's a great question, Raul. You know, I don't know. I mean,
ballpark, because I'm saying if in the city of Miami, and shout out to
1,000, I would imagine throughout the county. The county has, I would say there's got to be at least a couple of thousand. I mean, here on South Beach, we've got just here in South Beach on any given day 60, 70, 100.
Correct.
School board now. I mean, hasn't school board morphed to like 800
now? Absolutely. And I guess the segue to that is that, and again, shout out to, Chief Colina, who just retired from the city of Miami. City of Miami is the largest, municipal department in Dade County. They have over 1,000 officers. But the point I was getting at is when you look at the overall number of uniformed police officers out on the road and our population, 2.7 million,
just over
2.7 million, the numbers, we do a great, phenomenal. Well, you all in law enforcement out there, because I'm retired, but the fact of the matter is law enforcement does a phenomenal job considering the numbers game. And a lot of people don't realize that. And, another thing is most departments in South Florida, I think Miami Beach might be one of them, they're hiring. So those individuals that are concerned about reforming law enforcement, hey, fill out an application, and most departments in South Florida are currently hiring.
But I like something I like something you said, David, and you pointed it very aptly too. And you mentioned about inclusion, right? You have to have community inclusion. This is a partnership in law enforcement. I think the trick that I learned very early in law enforcement, certainly after I got promoted and I began to supervise the complexity of individuals who were behind the badge, dealing with the day-to-day struggles of people, officers having some serious encounters where their lives were endangered. The trick of the trade for me was inclusion. Getting the community involved as much as possible. So moving forward, first of all, I commend the Dade County Association of Chiefs of Police, because the standards you mentioned, you talked about standards earlier. Yeah. You talked about training the officers and how Dade County itself is ahead of other counties and probably other parts of the country when it comes to standardized norms of practice. But where can you see the police in Dade County? Like, what's the next step for our county police system or all agencies in the county on the unified direction of the Association of Chiefs of Dade County?
Well, for at the association level and what our role is, I think we have to continue that track that we're on in terms of really stressing what you just talked about, which is the community policing and the involvement. I think there's a misperception at times, and I hope your show at some point down the road, maybe this is something you guys can tackle. But for example, crimes aren't solved in 60 minutes like they do in CSI shows. They just don't. And sometimes when people resist arrest, for example, if they choose to resist and they increase their level of resistance, we have a duty to respond. And in that response, sometimes, especially nowadays where you can't walk a block without 15 people having 4K high def cell phone video that would make it to any television station. It sometimes doesn't look pretty when you do it. And I think that's a misperception that the community has, that 20 years ago that didn't occur. You didn't see that side of policing of when people don't, when they don't do as we ask them to do. and it leads to having us to some kind of response to resistance in order to effect an arrest, for example, if that's what's needed. So we have to continue to do that kind of a job. And I'm
You want to ask him real quick?
Yeah, listen, David, I don't mean to cut you off, but you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you this. Tell me, do you know of any other profession where the employees carry a body camera on them? I mean, think about the transparency that we in law enforcement have embraced, where you have body cameras. And can you imagine, a judge in his chambers wearing a body camera in discussions? Can you imagine a surgeon?
A surgeon in the OR.
Yeah, I mean, we are in law enforcement very transparent now, and you just made a very good point. It says sometimes it doesn't look good, it doesn't look pretty, and I think that going back to the communicating to the public what we are trained to do and what the compliance should be, I think that's important. And you're right about the solving of crimes in a timely manner. Hopefully, in the future, we'll have some of the folks from Crime Stoppers out here. I wonder how many people actually pick up the phone and call Crime Stoppers. What's the engagement in the community? But you're absolutely right. It just doesn't look good sometimes. Some of the best meals that I've ever had, I don't want to go in the back, the kitchen of the restaurant. That the transparency is there so we can tell people why we do what we do, and hopefully people will comply. Again, we have body cameras, everyone's adopting them more and more, and like you said, I tell people, I mean, it's just my conviction. I got the camera up in the heavens looking at me all the time. So you do what you do, and if you're doing the right thing, like the old movie Spike Lee, do the right thing. Everyone's everyone's a freelance reporter, with the camera.
It always boils back down to the golden rule, right?
Absolutely.
In any language, what to others.
So I think we've heard from you a desire to collaborate with us, which is so welcome. And I would ask Raul if it's okay, maybe we can meet with you or talk to you offline to improve the creative part of this show, because This is about giving the public a better understanding of the honorable job that police work is, and the amount of, unthankless deeds that are done on a daily basis, the heroics of our officers, but also bringing, context to this issue of, I think, that's fueled by lack of information, lack of understanding, emotions, right? But if we have this dialogue back and forth, I think it's going to be so much better to help our community that we all live in. And I mean, I couldn't have thought of a better, after 26 years in law enforcement, man, this is one of the highlights of all my public service, having served citizens of Miami-Dade County as a police officer. What do you think? Any thoughts?
I agree. And as we're getting ready to wrap up, David, do you got some closing remarks? You're a man of many talents, so give us something.
I was going to mention it. You mentioned Chief Colina, who just retired on Friday, so I wanted to, obviously point that out, congratulate him. We also recently, Chief Bill Hernandez from North Miami Beach Police, he announced his retirement. I think he's retiring at the end of this month. Wow. So I want to congratulate him as well. And then lastly, Chief Sam Ceballos from Pinecrest PD will be retiring in the next couple of months. Sam, I want to say he was 42 years in the business. Bill Hernandez, 33 years, I believe. And then Chief Colina, 30 years. So that's a lot of talent. That's a lot of talent leaving the profession.
Yeah.
But each of those agencies, I'm very confident in. I already know who the replacements are for Pinecrest and North Miami Beach. I think we're all still waiting on to see who the replacement for Miami is. But whoever they pick, especially since my understanding is they're picking from the inside, I think will do a fantastic job. And I always like to see when promotions occur from within, that says that those agencies are doing the right thing in terms of preparing their future leaders. So I look forward to welcoming whoever those new chiefs are to our association. And listen, I'm here. Raul knows how to get a hold of me, and this is I think a fantastic idea, and it hopefully will last for a long time, and we can build on that community partnership philosophy and get more people to understand, like you said, the honor that this is as a profession and the complexities of this profession as well. I think that sometimes gets a little lost. So I thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
So
David.
much of a
Really
pleasure.
appreciate it, taking your time.
So in the last closing minute here, I wanted to, what do you say we give a shout out to the birthday girl?
Oh, absolutely. We have a couple of birthday girls. Go
Oh,
ahead.
yes, absolutely.
Go ahead. You.
So our co-producer of the show, Gema Carrillo, happy birthday to you. Thank you for everything you do for us in law enforcement and for us as individuals. I can't think of a better partner to collaborate with, a person with many, many skills. Hopefully we'll get you on camera real soon because I know you're a little shy, but man, you're a tremendous asset to the creation and the launching of Miami Cop Talk. Who else, Raul?
My daughter Laurel, who just turned 21 years old
Happy
yesterday,
bee.
and that's that age where rite of passage. Now she's looking forward to drinking a beer at the Marlins game, and hopefully the other producer here, Tommy, will be the one to buy her and me a beer at the next Marlins game.
And of course, always thank you to our main producer, Tommy. He's always behind the scenes, producing these shows, making them happen. Thank you to the Millers, Michael, Grant, Miller, and the community newspapers team. More importantly, thank to you, all of you who are watching us and will be following us on hopefully the weeks and years to come.
Absolutely.
Bye.